Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Monica. I am a tarot reader and astrologer based in Australia, and today I am taking you all on a visual journey with the Devil card. Now, the reason I'm talking about the Devil card today is because it is my personal year card. Now, it's not my card of the year because I chose it at random. Rather, this is based on my date of birth, so the day, the month, and the year that it applies to. I'm about to enter into a devil year from December of 2024, so that's next month. If you have any questions on how to actually calculate that, you're welcome to put a comment down below. But essentially, you add up your day of birth, your month of birth, and the current year when your birthday falls. So for me, it falls in December 2024, so the year is 2024. So we add the digits up and then we reduce to a number between 0 and 21, and that's how you get, a number that corresponds to the major arcana between 0 and 21. Obviously, you're never going to get just 0 or 1. It applies to, later cards in the major arcana. But nonetheless, I have found this to be exceptionally insightful and useful for a coming birthday year for myself. And I've done this in the past, and this year I am looking at the Devil card. So I'm going to start our journey here with some of the earlier versions of the Devil. This one is from Jean Noblet Tarot, which is I think from 1690, circa thereabouts. My favorite Marseille type deck is the Jean Noblet, not least because this version has small cards, and I really appreciate that. But here we are, when Marseille type decks sort of set the scene for later versions of the Devil, and usually what we have is this sort of ominous and larger figure that presides over two human figures. Now, in this version, it's not quite obvious that they are humans. I think the ears are a bit, they're not, they're not human ears, to make it obvious, in case it isn't. But certainly the faces, or at least this face here, is absolutely human. And usually, the two figures are chained in one way or another to the Devil. Okay. Interestingly, they all have horns. And this will be relevant later on when I talk about some of my favorite meanings of the card. I will conclude this video by looking at that aspect of the Devil. But back to the earlier Marseille versions. I've got here another one. I've got the Payen. I think it's Jean-Pierre Payen. And again, here we've got, the two human figures, and again, they're tied. And then we've got this Devil figure behind them. And there's loads of detail on the card. I mean, I could sit here for an hour and look at all of the different levels of detail, even the color choice application. Why is red in certain parts and not others, and so on and so forth. But you get the message. I mean, we start off with this idea of having two people bound or restricted or tied to this other larger and often evil-looking figure. Now, this is taken to a very next level when we come to the Rider-Waite-Smith, because in the Rider-Waite-Smith, it becomes really obvious that we have two humans, and also the Devil figure is, right behind them, looking really big, much bigger than they are, much more fearsome. It's a very intimidating scene. And then we've got the chains around their necks, interestingly not around their hands. And the same in the earlier Marseille versions I showed you, the chains are around the necks too, not the hands. And made me think about the saying that goes something like, the devil makes work of idle hands. I don't think that this chain around their neck is deliberately around their neck as opposed to being around their hands or feet. I think, I think there's a purpose in why it's been shown like that, and it takes me back to that saying and the associated meaning from it. So let's have a look at some of the various cards that I have in front of me and how they've shown the devil, and talk about the most common meanings of this card. Okay. As it's quite obvious from the feel of the cards, the energy, the atmosphere, the way that the people are portrayed, the devil card in tarot has a lot to do with restrictions and limitations, with being bound, and basically being at the mercy of something bigger than you. Okay, something that is fearful and something that perhaps we don't want to confront. We don't want the truth about that as well, which I think is why there is a very wise saying that says the truth shall set you free. Because often it's those truths that we don't want to acknowledge that are the most detrimental to us, those lies that we tell ourselves. So, and actually that reminds me of a movie called Lantana. It's an Australian movie, and there's a scene in the movie where one of the protagonists is seeing a therapist, and the conversation goes something along the lines of, the lies that other people tell you. And I do remember, if I'm correct, the character saying, it's not so much the lies that other people tell us that bother them, it's the lies that we tell ourselves. And so with the devil card, when it pops up, I think it requires careful attention and an honest review of where we're at and what the devil could really be talking about. Okay. More than one writer have pointed out that very often in so many of these cards, the chains around the people are not tight and that their hands are free. So that they're actually, in that symbolism, free. They have freedom to remove themselves from the situation. Okay. Here's another one. This is from the Somnia Tarot. The devil. We know the ropes are very loose. They're not bound. And I absolutely love the symbolism there, because what it's saying is that the situation that you're encountering, you do have the power to transform that. And that's at the core of tarot work, is self-empowerment and the ability to, take charge of your life and to make the right decisions for yourself. But there are other, elements of the devil when that part requires a tremendous effort. And one of the things with the devil that comes up is addictions. All sorts of addictions, okay? Of course, the most common one is drug addictions. Okay, so drug and alcohol, but there can be other addictions, especially now with the internet and social media. We never had that before. For my generation or any other generation growing up, we're talking about internet addiction through social media apps. There's a whole generation of kids that are completely addicted to that. There's also porn addiction, there's gambling addictions, there's, all manner of addictions. So the devil, when it comes up, certainly can talk about addictions and limitations and things that need to be confronted if you are to live your life in full manifestation of your authenticity as a human being. Interesting, the Morgan Greer has got this fly there. Or is it a scarab beetle? I'll have to look into that. I'm not entirely sure. Quite a fearful figure here. I love the Morgan Greer, but this is one of my least favorite cards in that deck. I really don't like the devil. I mean, it's just such a fearsome image when it comes up. It makes you fearful, but then you've got to start confronting fears as you go through life. And that's when things start to get really interesting. Okay. The things that we fear. Actually, another of my favorite sayings about the devil is, I'm not afraid of the devil. I'm afraid of people who are afraid of the devil. That's a ripper, that one. That's always been my favorite when it comes to devil work. No, I'm not saying that evil doesn't exist in our world, because absolutely it does. I think you have to live under a rock to realize that, or to think that there is no evil. There is absolutely is evil in our world. But I think being afraid of that, or living our lives in fear, is no way to go about life. And in fact, our courage and our sense of justice, but also our love. Love is just I think it's one of the most powerful emotions in the world. Absolutely trumps anything else that walks on this earth. So anyhow, back to the devil card. So we talked about addictions and limitations and self-limiting behaviors that people, put on themselves often. Sometimes it is from other people, or it can also be like a whole culture at times. Now, this is the devil card from the Moonchild Tarot, and I just would like to quote what the creator has written about the devil in the little book that accompanies this deck, very briefly. She writes, "The devil exists as a spiritual blockage or trickster shadow that runs amok and breaks us down. This could take on the form of a negative relationship, a mental state of entrapment, an unhealthy obsession, or some kind of addiction. It may also indicate a lack of moderation or self-control, and the self-defeating, willful patterns from which we must learn to release ourselves. Yet despite these frightening setbacks, there is a deeper lesson that emerges from this key. It illuminates those moments of revelation and self-control when we are able to reroute our choices and be sovereign in our power. When we literally go through hell and back and know that we are profoundly more enlightened and resilient because of it. This is the ultimate catalyst for spiritual strength, when love becomes brighter and more expansive as a result of the shadows we learn to transmute and shed." I think that is absolutely beautiful what she has written there, and absolutely, really, really love this this version of the devil. Not least because the color I find a lot softer, with the sort of the pink as opposed to the really bold red and black that you usually find. Okay. With some cards, you will have keywords, particularly cards that come from a Thoth tradition as well, but not always. So here we've got the word torment, and here the person's hands are indeed tied, very tightly. And I think when you read the devil card, you gotta really pay attention to the card in front of you and the imagery, because a person with free hands would be in a different position than should you be reading with this deck and the devil card come up and the hands are tied. Okay. And of course the keyword torment there tells us quite a lot that the situation is really, really difficult for them. The devil has always been a really feared card in the tarot, and but more from a cliched point of view, you know, like when people think about the tarot deck, if they know nothing about the tarot, they might hear that there's a death card and a devil card, and you know, as if that sort of, they just prove that tarot is just rubbish because it's got these, cards that are just ridiculous, about the devil and so on, and death and things like that. But I think the devil is a major arcana card, and you've got to give it credit. You've got to pay attention when it comes. This is so important that in some decks, like this one here from the Burning Tiger, we've got two different versions of the devil. And I love it in this one because one's the devil and the other one is Diavolessa. It sounds kind of sexy if you ask me. I mean, none are very appealing visually. They kind of make me sort of put them away. I don't like the way they've been, not from an artistic point of view, but just the imagery is just like really off-putting, okay? It's not the only one to portray the devil, to have more than one card. Here is the Victorian Romantic. This is from the 4th edition. And this one certainly alludes to the temptation aspect of the devil. We're being tempted. We're very, very, very tempted here with riches, and to me this almost looks like jewels in one hand, and I mean she's certainly very enchanting. We've got the snake, and of course you can look back to the story of Adam and Eve and the snake in the Garden of Eden, and this devil here has got like this sort of like a monster, frightening or binding the human in the card. So I think the fact that we've got two different cards to choose from, personally I'm a fan of this one. I think it's absolutely spot on when the devil comes. The things that you're addicted to, or the temptation of the material realm, materialism, to do with money. And it's not just money because, as someone said, it's not money that's the root of all evil, it's the love of money. And I'll take that further, and it's about seeing this world in very black and white terms, as in the only thing that we can see and touch are the only things that matter. Nothing else matters. It completely dismisses the spiritual realm, and that there's another realm out there. There's another element to our life. It's not all about what we can see and touch and feel only. It's not just about how much money you can make, as if there are no consequences for that, for there are. And I think indigenous cultures have always recognized the cycles of life, that we're all in this continuous cyclical pattern of lives being born and dying and reborn and dying. It just keeps on going and going. And I kind of feel like, they had that recognition that it's this life isn't all there is, that there is more to it. So, and I think that part of the devil actually is, not recognizing that, not acknowledging that. I think that's very much a devil thing, to, which is paradoxical, because if you think about the mainstream religion, like especially like Christianity, they talk about the devil and it being a devil and a hell and things like that, but yet I'm not gonna go down that path. I think you know what I'm trying to say here. This is from Our Story Tarot. Now Abigail Williams as a devil. She was one of the two girls that started having convulsions and fits in Salem, and sort of sparked the whole witch hunt in that village, from what I understand it, which became this huge thing, and a lot of people were prosecuted and tortured. I think it was something like 20 people were killed through the whole witch trials in Salem, and a really, really dark history there. She was very young when she and her half-sister, I think, or niece, started having those convulsions, and then as time went by, I think they just got swept up in the story, and it became bigger than themselves, and it had terrible, terrible consequences. So she was chosen as the devil in the Our Story Tarot, which is a tarot deck where each card is assigned one woman of notable influence in history. So, with the devil, the keywords of addiction, limitations, boundaries, restrictions, but also materialism. I think materialism is a really, really important keyword with the devil. And not recognizing the spiritual dimension of life. Not recognizing our own self-limiting beliefs and our own internal fears, I think, are really, really important keywords or phrases about the devil. I really like some of these more modern versions of the card, like here in the Gaian Tarot, we've got bindweed, and this person is absolutely tormented. And it talks about, bindweed being an invasive species, and I think no matter where you are in the world, you're going to have an invasive species, or lots of them, as is the case in Australia, that just completely take over the environment, and they smother everything in their path. Also, I think starlings are the other invasive species in America, and here in Australia we have myna birds. A decade ago there were like none here in the Whitsundays, and now there are thousands of them. It's become such a huge problem, and they outcompete the native species on everything, or in the case of bindweed, they smother it. Another one that talks about being a weed, or having the potential to smother the environment, is blackberry, the blackberry vine. This is from the Herbcrafters Tarot, and we also have the idea of temptation with this really lovely pie with these juicy blackberries. But what is the cost to the environment where you have like these berries that just completely take over a patch and nothing else can grow in their in that place? So no matter how much we might enjoy it, we gotta think it's more than just our personal enjoyment of the thing. There's other implications there and other things to think about. I love this unfolding path devil. I mean, very sexy, don't you think? Very, very appealing or alluring, very enticing, very magnetic. All right. And I love how the chains are like in gold, they sparkle. There's that the idea of riches. You're going for something that is so alluring, and it provides you with so much wealth and money, but it comes with this bondage element that you're going to be tied to. Okay, and I'm not saying that materialism is bad, just like my earlier saying about money. I'm not saying money is bad. Okay, it's the love of money that's bad. It's the love of that power that comes with the money that brings up all these issues. Of course, we have the devil in bedroom scenes. I quite like this one. I mean, he doesn't seem too upset, if you ask me. But then in cards like this one, there's certainly a feeling of dejection and sadness, and it's not a happy scene, all right. I'm sure there'll be quite a few people that see this card and think about some of their relationships in the past where this was the case. When you're tied to someone or bound to someone that is no good for you whatsoever. The idea of temptation and seduction and things like that are very, very, very common with the devil. I absolutely love this card. It's got all there's my addiction there, coffee, although not instant. I will never give up my coffee. But yes, we've got drugs, we've got cigarettes, we've got alcohol, we've got bad foods, you name it. All right. And one here where materialism is spelt out in case it's not obvious. All right. The materialistic view of the world, which is insanely prevalent now, and it's kind of gone into an overdrive gear since the 80s. We're talking about Reagan economics and the neoliberal economic model. Everything has a price put on it, and everything and anything is for sale. Anything to satisfy the growing economy, the economic growth model that conveniently and to our collective detriment ignores the fact that you can't have infinite growth on a finite planet. So there we are. So we've got a whole host of images and depictions of the devil card, as you have been seeing through this little journey here. Personally, I do remember, actually one thing I will say is to not underestimate or dismiss the devil when it comes up. Even when you think it doesn't apply. And I remember I had one reading once. I was at a festival and I was giving this older lady a reading, and the devil came up for one of her children. And I talked about the devil, and then I said something along the lines of, it does also mean addictions like drug addictions and alcohol addictions. But your kids are young, so that it's not the case. So there is another instance where, and this is a personal thing that I have to work through, where I let a rational judgment override the card in front of me, because she said to me, as soon as I said that, she said, "Oh no, my son is addicted to marijuana," and her son was 15. And I found that staggering. I was absolutely floored that a 15-year-old would be addicted to marijuana. If you know anything about marijuana, certain people should never smoke it, and one of those groups of people is teenagers, for a number of very, very crucial reasons. But let's not talk about that. But anyway, so I think it's really important to not dismiss the devil or to downplay it, when it comes up. Love this one of the devil as, I think, a setter from the New Mythic Tarot, playing the pipe. And I think this card introduces my favorite meanings above all for the devil. All right. I bought this card out. It's not this card per se as the next few cards, but I just want to take a moment and read to you another passage from the Mythic Tarot book that talks about the devil. So the New Mythic Tarot book explains this card succinctly with this paragraph. The goat in myth was associated with lechery and dirtiness and was considered an unclean and lustful animal. But the goat also symbolizes the scapegoat, the person or thing upon whom people project the inferior side of themselves in order to feel cleaner and more righteous. Thus Pan, the devil, is the scapegoat within, which we blame for our troubles in life. Absolutely, really, really, really love that little passage there. And with that, let's introduce Cernunnos. Now, this is from the Arthurian tarot. And once again, I would like to just briefly mention where this card is coming from. And now we can see in this card here the resemblance between the later versions of the Devil card and Cernunnos, the horned one, you know, with the half goat and also with the antlers coming up. And Janina Renee, in her book Tarot for a New Generation, talks about this, the fact that one of the meanings of the Devil card is you know, this idea of Cernunnos, or the god of the hunt, the wild god. She writes in her book, because early Christian missionaries demonized the gods of older religions, it is believed that the devil was modeled on one of the horned gods of old Europe. Some modern tarot designers, uncomfortable with the evil portrayed in the Devil card, have assigned new images and meanings. For example, Anna Marie Ferguson's Arthurian tarot deck portrays the horned one, Cernunnos, the god who protects animals and relates it to primal instincts. So this is another version, another interpretation of the same Cernunnos of god of the wild, called the wild herdsman as well, or the horned one. For the Devil card. This is from the Llewellyn Tarot. And these are by far my most favorite versions of the Devil. It's like, it just feels really close to my heart. It feels right. It feels, you know, this acknowledgement that this other side of our nature and the primal forces, you know, to do with mating and sexuality and the wild, are not bad aspects of ourselves, as they have been, you know, demonized over centuries by certain religions. But they are, you know, they're like a fundamental, integral aspect of who we are as a human being. So, yeah, I think personally, for me, even though this is not the meaning that you'll come across when you do your, you know, a standard tarot reading for someone, and you get the Devil card, it's not, you know, it's often about those earlier keywords that I talked about, like addictions and things like that, and self-limiting behaviors and temptations and materialism and all those things. They're the ones that come up in a primary meaning, but at the same time, that wild god, the horned one, Cernunnos, you can't dismiss that is very likely the you know, the initial or the impetus for the Devil card in Christianity, or for the devil itself in Christianity. You know, if you look at the way that the devil is portrayed later on, and the resemblance with the wild god and Cernunnos, you know, with the antlers and the half person, half beast, half animal. It's, yeah, anyway, I really wanted to include that in this journey of the Devil card, because I think it is really, really important one. This is from the Green Witch. It talks about nature, and there's a hunter setting a trap with a bear behind him, and it highlights, you know, the importance of nature. And I love that she's titled this Nature, even though it's not true to, I guess, traditional tarot, but nonetheless there is wisdom there, and I appreciate having this card renamed Nature. So yes, I'm about to conclude this journey. I think it's a longer video than I intended to, but at the same time I really wanted to provide this visual, you know, a bit of a visual journey through the Devil card and look at aspects of it as I enter, although its energies are already being felt I should say. And personally, although perhaps I should also say collectively. Now, I have had the devil card come up as a year card, as a birth year card for me before. This isn't the first time. And interestingly, the times that it has come up before for a full year was the year when I had a nearly year-long addiction to marijuana. A pretty bad one, actually. And there were a couple of other devil-related energies or themes in my life for that year, but I've only been addicted once, and that was it, basically, and I was in a devil year card. So I have no intention of that being the case for next year, by the way. I certainly learned my lesson. I'm going to conclude now with one of the loveliest cards of the devil. Well, I think it is anyway. I like it. It's from the Druidcraft. And as much as I like this card, I like what the author has had to write about it even more. Now, the artwork itself is done by Will Worthington. This is for the Druidcraft, but the book itself, the book is written by Philip and Stephanie Cargrom. Excuse me. And they write about this card, which is titled Cernunnos. So they, once again, this recognition of that element of the devil card. Here we see an image of Cernunnos, the lord of the animals, the wild herdsman and hunter. Before him, two lovers sleep as the sun sets. This card represents the raw power of the instincts and of nature, and also the dangers of delusion and excess, but offers the potential for achieving both freedom and abundance. It teaches us how to live effectively in the material world without becoming trapped by the glamour and illusion offered by a world obsessed with wealth, status, sexuality, and violence. The card points to the dangers of overindulgence, of being obsessive, greedy, and abusive, and yet it also hints at the enormous power that is available to us if we can free ourselves of the thrall of the material and sensual world, and yet still live both fully and creatively within it. They go on to say, calling the figure represented by this card the devil, though, suggests that the forces he represents are evil. We have renamed the card Cernunnos after the horned god of fertility because in Druidry and Wicca, the powers of the animal, instinctual, sexual, and material worlds are not considered evil. In fact, they represent the very forces which govern life on earth and in all its abundance. However, it is undeniable that many human beings find it hard to accept, mediate, and utilize these forces in responsible ways, hence the rape of the biosphere, the rape and abuse of human beings. Some believe paganism to be immoral, when in fact witches and druids work to develop a powerful sense of social and environmental justice that respects and reveres life. But it also respects and reveres the life force and does not seek to repress it. Instead, it seeks to integrate or channel it to bring creativity, health, pleasure, and ecstasy in appropriate and responsible ways. And with that, I shall conclude my journey with the devil card for this video, because I'm only just beginning that journey in my personal life for the coming year ahead. I thank you for sticking with me if you're still here. Thank you for supporting my channel. Thank you for watching, and until my next video, take care.